So, it's here. It's happened. We've bottomed out. We've reached the lowest point of the year, at least from a cinematic point of view. Surely there is nowhere else to go now except for up. There can't be any films that release this year that are possibly worse. Are there? Nothing worse than Megamind 2. Or rather, Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate. Oh, okay. But I think we need some context, right? So in 2010, we saw the release of the superhero parody film Megamind, which told the story of Megamind, a highly intelligent alien supervillain who, after long last, manages to vanquish his longtime arch-enemy, Metro Man, the hero of Metro City. But soon after, he finds himself aimless and without purpose. No crimes can satisfy him. The thrill was in the chase, in the conflict, and now he feels empty. And so, after some encouragement from an unlikely source, he uses a local news cameraman as the base for a genetically modified hero named Titan. And at the same time, he embarks on a romantic relationship with the news anchor with whom Titan is obsessed. Anyway, it all goes pear-shaped. Turns out Titan is a crazy person, and so Megamind is forced to become a hero, defeat him, take back his powers, and ultimately replaces Metro Man as the protector and hero of Metro City. And yeah, this movie's great. It's funny, exciting, great animation, colourful cast of characters. It's just a real fun movie. It didn't do too well when it first released. I mean, critically it was fine, but it wasn't the most successful film financially, taking in $321 million at the box office of a budget of $130 million. And well, it's not like that's terrible, but for DreamWorks, it is a low gross. And it was among the worst performing films of the decade. And so despite it being rather good and developing a cult following over the years, it seemed very unlikely the studio would be giving the franchise a second chance. After all, they'd already had a number of cash cow franchises that they could milk. Why try to prop up a franchise that's already proven to be unlucrative? But as often happens, times change. It's been 14 years since the release of the first film. There's a new team in place, new storytellers, new business people. The company's changed, the industry's changed. Sequels are a massive draw now. And since the film has developed more of a following due to meme culture and social media, I guess it wasn't out of the realm of possibility, that new following could prop up a sequel, which might in turn do better than the original. After all, worked so well for Morbius to follow the memes, right? Right? And so, they made a straight-to-streaming sequel film that was released on Peacock, and is supposed to serve as a bit of a pilot for a TV show, which they also released at the same time. And I'll be honest, I actually dove into this movie with decently high expectations. I thought, yeah, it's straight to streaming, but that doesn't mean it's going to be bad. And on top of that, I'm one of those cult followers of the original film. So I was just excited to be getting some sort of follow-up. It was just genuinely very exciting. And I watched it, and within moments, something became very, very clear. This film was arse, like straight shark juice.
Did you have to be so graphic?
Bargain basement garbage tier trash. I would say it's the worst film I've seen in recent years. Perhaps the least enjoyable, since I watched that terrible Pinocchio the True Story animation with yassified Pauly Shore Pinocchio.
Father, tell me, when can I leave to be on my own? I've got the whole world to see.
But at least that was verging on being so bad it's good. This was just bad. Don't take my word for it. Let's head to Rotten Tomatoes, where currently it has a 0% critical score. Yes, 0%. And a 10% audience score. So to put it plainly, this film sucks. My goodness, does it suck hard. Like, yeah, you honestly have to see it to believe it. It's like going to a nice chicken restaurant. You buy your chicken sandwich, looks really nice, yummy, packaging's all there, looking nice and official, and then it's raw inside. Oof. That's what this is.
Fucking raw! What the fuck is going on?
You get your hopes up for Megamind 2, and then boom, salmonella. And honestly, I'm not even sure where to start. There's so much terrible to discuss, but maybe I can talk through some of what I did enjoy. I thought the animation itself was pretty good overall, like nothing super out of this world, but it didn't look noticeably bad or cheap, at least I didn't recall thinking so when I watched. I mean, it's not like the original changed the game in terms of animation quality either, but still I think this sequel lives up to it. You just have to take those small victories when it comes to a film like this, otherwise you'll just be sad, but also I think it might just be me who doesn't think the animation's that bad, because this seems to be one of the bigger complaints I've actually seen from a wider audience, that visually, the film does not live up to what we saw before. And now that I think about it, maybe I've just watched too many of those made-for-streaming DreamWorks TV shows that have budget animation, to the point that I'm completely desensitized to it. And so I think for somebody who's only ever really seen the cinema-quality DreamWorks animation, this film visually probably would come across as pretty ugly and very disappointing for longtime fans. And then the other thing I liked was that sometimes the film did make me laugh. And I mean, made me laugh with it, not at it. And that's an important distinction, I think. Mostly when they go back to the tried and tested classic of having Megamind mispronounce words. Metrocity, saying shul instead of school, for no real reason at all. Like, we saw he went to school, so he should know how to say these things, but he can't. And that did make me laugh. But at the same time, most of those jokes were literally lifted from the first film, and then weren't very original. Hell, I think every word he actually stuffs up in this movie, he'd done in the original. Although I do wish he'd said melancholy again. That's the best part of the entire first movie. And I'm being 100% serious with that statement.
Then why do I feel so melancholy?
Oh, and on top of that, I thought the action sequences and the fight scenes, they were decent. And basically all of Chum's side plot where he gets a job at a diner and rapidly turns it into the best donut store in town, I don't know, I found that section fun and wholesome. It couldn't make up for the rest of the movie though, because the rest is rough, like really, really rough. For starters, let's look at voice quality. The voice cast, the original, it was goddamn star-studded. It had Will Ferrell as Megamind giving it his all. It had Brad Pitt as Metro Man. Tina Fey, Jonah Hill, J.K. Simmons, Ben Stiller. Just such a talented group of people lending their voices to the movie. Then for this version, none of them came back. Not even David Cross, who originally voiced Minion. And he had such a good voice for the part. Not to be harsh, but surely DreamWorks could have afforded to bring him back. If you can get him for Alvin and the Chipmunks Chipwrecked, surely they could have got him for this one too. But yeah, they have a fresh cast who were there doing impersonations of the OG cast, and the impersonations for the most part are not good. They feel store brand. Mummy, can we have Megamind? No, we have Megamind at home, dearie. That type of vibe. And yeah, nobody's worse than the guy playing the part of Megamind. Like, oh, look how they massacred my boy. But I think for the most part, where everything goes wrong is the story. As I said earlier, there are very few highlights there. Narratively, I liked Chum's story, even if their team breakup was stupid and simply a rehashed plot point from the first movie. But for the most part, the film was just pretty shit, all things considered. We pick up the film story a couple of days after the events of the first film, which was already a red flag because you kind of need that time skip, because it gives you an excuse for the characters to behave slightly differently. It gives you some more narrative potential. You can add new things like, I don't know, them getting married, having a kid. We're just spitballing ideas here. But for some reason, it's only a few days later, and yet it feels like everybody's regressed, especially Megamind as a character. He massively regressed in terms of his personality. And on top of that, he's now not in a relationship with Roxanne Ritchie, even though that was heavily implied at the end of the first film. And so their dynamic is just terrible now. Like, it actually pissed me off the way they interacted. It didn't make any sense at all. Like, come on now. This was the major launching pad for the storyline. They had this ready-made plot point and they immediately fumble it. And they follow this up with a second fumble by rehashing the Minion/Chum and Megamind split. Last time, it was because Minion thought that Megamind needed to remain as a villain. This time, because he feels underappreciated and wants to be promoted to sidekick. After only a couple of days of heroism, and when he doesn't get the promotion, he quits and he goes off to do his donut thing, which, like I said, is the highlight of the whole thing. Should have just made the whole movie about Chum's quest to become a donut king. And so, instead of compelling plot lines, we're supposed to believe that Megamind was once part of this super group of villains called the Doom Syndicate that are famous enough for Roxanne to know who they are, and yet somehow not to know that Megamind was the founder and the leader of the group. Okay? And yeah, for the most part, the group's a dud. The best character is by far Lord Nighty Night, who, well, it's just another one of those characters that genuinely made me smile, and he had a lot of good moments, and so did the big volcano rock man Behemoth. But the others were tedious. And the story, where they're in denial about Megamind being a hero and think he's a villain trying to fool everybody, it's just shit. It's dull. It has nothing of value. A paper-thin plot. It's held together by paper clips and prayers, with no real villain to be excited for. If they took one of the four and built the entire film around them, Lord Nighty Night, I'm looking at you, son, I think you could have salvaged it, it would have got a bit more interesting. But as it is, we never got enough time with them to actually make us truly care. I mean, shit, I'll fess up. I'm pretty sure that this movie was so boring that I fell asleep during the big confrontation where Megamind's getting slapped around. And then I woke up and nothing had changed. And that's what I find the most amusing, is that this is supposed to be some sort of pilot, preview, prequel. It's meant to sell the show. A show that is releasing alongside it. It wants you to watch that. But if you ask me, more than anything, this film serves as a giant neon billboard screaming out into the darkness of the void, into the land of cyberspace, do not watch this show. Like, yeah, if it's more of the same, you'd have to be a madman and a fool to actually want to sit down and watch the show all the way through. Well, I guess I am indeed either a madman or a fool, because as I finish up with this, and after I've built up my courage a little bit, My inner glutton for punishment already is developing that morbid curiosity that must be sated. And I have to know, how much worse can this get? What other baffling decisions can be made? What storylines can be utterly ruined? How bad can the acting be? Well, it's time to fire up Peacock yet again and investigate. But that's a story for another time. For now, I'm going to lie down and I'm going to cry about how a classic was ruined by corporate greed and truly terrible creative decisions. I'm a sad man today. And so with all that being said, that's the end of the video, and I would like to remind you that these have just been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate, if you've seen it? Did you like it? Somehow? You one of the few? Or did you hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.